to destroy Trump. The insurance policy is in case, God forbid, he wins. We don't think it's going to happen. And it's clear they were using the powerful tools of intelligence and a FISA warrant to have a backup plan in case Hillary lost. This is far worse than Watergate. This is an abuse of surveillance and intelligence to win an election, a massive abuse of power. And it was all done by just a few people who think and thought they knew better than you about who should be the president of the United States. And this is only the tip of the spear. It is the biggest national scandal by far in our lifetime. Joining us now with more information, Congressman Jim Jordan and Matt Gaetz and Fox News contributor Sarah Carter. Sarah, all right, let me ask all three of you, yes or no, am I over the target? Jim Jordan.
Sean, what I read today in that classified briefing room is as bad as I thought it was, and every single American citizen should have the ability to see that information to know exactly what our FBI was up to.
Will it shock the conscience of the American people?
Sean, it shocked me. I compared it to, I remember the day I walked in 2 years ago on the Benghazi committee, walked in and saw the immunity agreements that were given to people in the Clinton investigation. I didn't know who they'd given them to. I opened up that folder and I looked down when the Justice Department official slid that folder over to me on that table and looked down and see they gave Cheryl Mills immunity during the Clinton investigation, Clinton's chief of staff, her lawyer. Today, when I read the material, I had that same shock feeling. I was like, wait a minute, this actually happened from our Justice Department and this FBI. That's how serious this is. That's why we're calling on every bit of that information we got to see today to be made public for you to see, for journalists to see, most importantly, for the American people to see.
Matt Gaetz, you saw these materials today. You agreeing with Jim Jordan? Because it sounds like a few people decided they wanted to fix, not only they fixed it so Hillary wouldn't get in trouble on the email server scandal. We know felonies were committed. She fixed the primary, rigged the primary. Sounds like they're fixing and rigging here a general election or to overturn an election. And, you know, I mean, whatever word you want to describe that. Fixing, well, Sean, rigging, a coup, I don't know.
Yeah, you are describing the very elements of a palace coup. And after Jim and Mark Meadows and many others of us reviewed the intelligence information today, it is abundantly clear that the entire Mueller investigation is a lie built on a foundation of corruption. And what is so important is that we get this information into the public square. Yep. The best disinfectant for this corruption is going to be sunshine, and that's why Jim Jordan and I have joined many other members of Congress in calling for this information to be released for the review of all of the American people. You know, Sean, when you've been on this show each and every night making claims about the bias and the corruption and the deep state, people have accused you and your guests of being tinfoil hat folks, lone voices in the wilderness. This critical intelligence information will vindicate the claims that have been made by so many, and it is absolutely essential that we share it with all Americans. That's what we're fighting for in the Congress.
Is it a fair statement that what we've been, the onion we've been unpeeling, we've been over the target the whole time? Congressman Gaetz?
Well, Sean, we can't get into the specific information, but I can tell you I am as certain as ever that the claims we have been making are accurate claims, that there is intelligence information that backs it up, and that there has been a real attempt to undermine this president, and it has come from the scariest of places. Some of the very people we've been talking about will be exposed, and the key reason that all Americans need to see this memo is that it names names. It says who was involved with who, how different actors and characters we've heard about interacted with one another, and that is the type of information that we need all Americans to see immediately.
Sarah Carter, you have been all over this all day. What can you tell us about your reporting?
Well, I can certainly say that my reporting coincides with what Congressman Gaetz and Congressman Jordan are saying, and I think it's far worse than what I believed could have happened. And from what I've been told, senior government officials may be removed from office, may be fired. I don't know how far this will go. I also want a lot of those questions answered. Sean, who was in relationship to who when it came to these FISA warrants? How did they operate with one another? What were these really egregious actions that took place that only this memorandum and report can tell us? And I've been watching my Twitter feed, and I've been watching Twitter all day, and I'm seeing hashtag release the documents, hashtag release the documents everywhere. And the American public deserves to know the truth here. It is absolutely essential that we understand what was happening. And this was a duly elected president of the United States of America. And if people within our own government were trying to usurp that and change the trajectory, then the American people need to know.
All right, I agree with you on release the documents. The Wall Street Journal tonight in an editorial, they're demanding the same thing. Congressman Jordan, we deserve to see this. You agree with that? And how soon will we be able to get our eyes on these documents?
Great question, Sean. Here's the process. Chairman Nunes in the Intelligence Committee in the House, he can bring the committee back together. They can have a vote. If a majority of the committee votes to release these documents, the executive branch gets a certain amount of time to review them. If the executive branch gives the thumbs up, they go public. So this could happen real quick. Chairman Nunes is committed to getting this information to the public.
Not one Democrat wanted you to see it.
Well, no, they didn't. But I can, after you read it and you see, and if they're playing partisan politics, you can see why they didn't want us to see that, and you can see why they won't want the American people. But as Matt Gaetz said, as Sarah said, this is something that needs to be out. So this should never happen in a country as great as the United States of America. And we need every single American take a look at this and see what exactly their government did, their law enforcement division did. This is that kind of information, and it needs to be public as soon as possible.
Well, it sounds to me like a lot of people, Congressman Gaetz, need to be fired and investigated.
Yeah, that's right. I think that this will not end just with firings. I believe there are people who will go to jail. I was very persuaded by the evidence, and it also became clear to me why Chuck Grassley and Lindsey Graham felt it so important to refer this matter for criminal prosecution. You don't get to try to undermine our country, undermine our elections, and then simply get fired. So I think there will be criminal implications here, and we have to underscore the point that you and Jim Jordan just made. Every single Democrat on the Intelligence Committee voted against even allowing other members of Congress to see this information. So you know they're going to fight against release to the American people. What are the Democrats so afraid of? Why don't they want the American people to know the truth about what was going on with the government, how that impacted the president, his transition, his campaign? And it just seems interesting to me that Democrats don't want us to know what the entire basis was in the first place for the Mueller probe. They want to drag this out through the midterm elections to try to embarrass this president and distract this Congress from the critical work we've got to do to save this great country. Let's release the documents.
Any details, do you conclude that Mueller, the whole issue of Trump-Russia collusion, never should have come up? Does Mueller need to disband? And
absolutely. This was a lie built on corruption, built on a sham. The entire investigation is a fiction. It's a fallacy. And when the American people see how this began, when the American people see how different people interacted with one another, how organizations were infected and infiltrated and subjected to tremendous bias of individuals, and how that really played out, I think that every American will understand how absolutely ludicrous it is that we continue to allow the Mueller probe to go forward. It needs to end because the entire basis is a lie.
I know from my sources, Sarah, that they're saying this should result in the immediate firing of Lisa Page, of Peter Strzok, of Bruce Orr, also Andrew McCabe. I have some questions. Where does Rod Rosenstein stick in this equation, the one that appointed the special counsel? Did he, because we now know the dossier, the phony Clinton bought and paid for dossier, that was used for the FISA warrant. All of this leads to Mueller. That never should have happened because it was on opposition party propaganda. Then everybody's, what's with Comey? What's his involvement here? Where does he stand? Where does Mueller's investigation stand based on your reporting tonight?
Well, apparently when this document goes public, which I believe it will, I do believe it will be the unraveling of the Mueller probe. And I've been hearing that from other sources. And Sean, this was all about in the beginning. Remember, Trump-Russia collusion, Trump-Russia collusion. Now we know from what we've been hearing from the sources, from the congressional members who have seen this memo, that the collusion appears to be between certain members of the FBI and the DOJ and the Hillary Clinton campaign, and that the foundation of this was all based on lies. Not only do I want to know what Rosenstein Rosenstein, who was actually, the Department of Justice was withholding that information for a long period of time, and then finally gave it up to the House Intelligence Committee.
Did Rod Rosenstein sign off an extension of this FISA warrant? Do we know?
We don't know that yet. I have not had the privilege of seeing the actual classified document, of course. The congressional members have, but I do not know the answer to that yet. But I would like to know how Sidney Blumenthal plays into all of this, because I think that's going to be a very telling revelation when all of this comes out.
Can you give us any information, not giving us any details, Congressman Jordan, but about Comey, about Mueller, and I'm very interested in Rod Rosenstein and all of this.
No, I mean, look, there are certain people who can sign a FISA application. Only certain people can at the Justice Department do that. So we don't know who did. And after you go read this material,
well, it wasn't. We can eliminate this quickly. It wasn't Jeff Sessions. He was recused. So it's either Rosenstein or I believe one other person has the ability to.
There's only a handful of people at FBI and Justice who can sign off on one. Who did that? We don't know. What we do know is what we've been talking about. This should go public. And also, we know there is more to come because the investigation at the Intelligence Committee is not complete. Thank goodness for what Devin Nunes and his committee are doing and the push they did on the Justice Department to get these documents in the first place. But there is more information. Their investigation is not complete. When it's complete, then you're going to see the Judiciary Committee in the House do even more.
Comey had to know all of this was going on, didn't he?
Well, we can't talk about specifics, who knew what, and what we read today. What we read today, though, was a memo that compiled information that they've got, that they presented to members of Congress to look at. We called for members of Congress to be able to see this material just a few weeks ago. Today, we're calling on all Americans to be able to see this material so they can see what really took place.
Hashtag release the document. Release all the background associated with the document. Thank you all for being with us.